In an era marked by geopolitical tension and rapid social change, the world turned its eyes to the Vatican, captivated by the figure of a man who transcended borders and ideologies. As Pope John Paul II reached the end of his life, few could have predicted that his final moments would contain a revelation so profound it would leave the entire Vatican in shock. What did the Pope reveal in his final hours? And why has this message continued to reverberate through history, stirring both admiration and mystery? In this video, we will delve into the extraordinary life of Pope John Paul II, tracing his rise from an unassuming boy in Poland to one of the most influential spiritual leaders of the 20th century. Then we will explore his final days and moments to understand the message that has left many searching for answers. Karol Józef Wojtyła was born in the small town of Wadowice, Poland, on May 18, 1920, into a family that would endure both the joy of shared faith and the tragedy of untimely loss. His father, Karol Sr., was a former soldier turned tailor, and his mother, Emilia, passed away when Karol was just 9 years old. This early tragedy marked the first in a series of losses that would shape his resilience and faith. Only 3 years later, his older brother Edmund, a physician, succumbed to scarlet fever after treating patients, leaving young Karol to face yet another devastating blow. Despite these losses, Karol's relationship with his father deepened. His father, a man of strong faith, nurtured his son's spirituality and intellectual curiosity, laying the foundation for what would become an unshakable commitment to God. In his youth, Karol was an avid athlete and actor. He had a passion for soccer, swimming, skiing, and hiking, and he was known for his theatrical talents. These interests, however, did not distract him from his spiritual pursuits. When Nazi Germany invaded Poland in 1939, Karol was forced to balance his education with grueling labor in a quarry and later in a chemical factory. Amid the brutality of war and occupation, Karol found solace in clandestine studies at an underground seminary. His decision to enter the seminary in 1942 was a dangerous one, as the Nazis actively persecuted clergy and religious institutions. Yet Karol's faith and determination propelled him forward, undeterred by the risks. Karol's rise within the church was marked by rapid progress and remarkable achievements. Ordained as a priest in 1946, he pursued further studies in Rome and later taught philosophy at the Jagiellonian University in Krakow. His intellect, charisma, and spiritual depth were evident, drawing attention from church leaders and earning him a reputation as an influential voice in the post-war church. In 1958, at the age of 38, Karol was appointed as an auxiliary bishop, and only 4 years later, he became the Archbishop of Krakow. His contributions during the Second Vatican Council in the 1960s were significant, where he championed religious freedom, human rights, and the modern relevance of church teachings. By the time of the 1978 conclave, the church was in search of a leader who could inspire renewal and hope amid widespread social change. At just 58 years old, Karol Wojtyła emerged as the unlikely choice, elected as the first non-Italian pope in over 4 centuries and taking the name John Paul II. His election was a historic moment, reflecting a shift in the church's center of gravity and signaling a new era of engagement with the world. From the very beginning, John Paul II's papacy was marked by an unprecedented global outreach. He became known as the Pilgrim Pope, visiting more than 100 countries during his tenure and speaking to millions. His message of unity and peace transcended religious boundaries, earning him admiration from people of all faiths and cultures. He stood as a symbol of resilience against political oppression, especially in his native Poland, where he became a beacon of hope during the country's struggle against communist rule. In 1981, just 3 years into his papacy, John Paul II faced a life-threatening ordeal when an assassin shot him in St. Peter's Square. The image of the Pope collapsing in the arms of his aides stunned the world. Rushed into surgery, he narrowly escaped death, and the incident became a defining moment in his life. But what truly captured the world's attention was the Pope's response. Rather than harboring resentment, he chose to forgive his attacker, Mehmet Ali Agca. John Paul II later visited Agca in prison, where the two men spoke in private, a moment that symbolized the Pope's unwavering belief in forgiveness and compassion, principles that would come to define his legacy. The challenges John Paul II faced during his papacy extended beyond the spiritual and political realms. They also took a toll on his physical health. By the early 1990s, it was evident that the Pope's health was in decline. His slow and deliberate movements, slurred speech, and visible tremors led to widespread speculation about his condition. Despite this, the Vatican maintained silence for years, even as the Pope underwent multiple surgeries and continued to travel extensively. It wasn't until the late 1990s that the Vatican confirmed the long-suspected diagnosis of Parkinson's disease, acknowledging the severity of the Pope's health battle. In February 2005, John Paul II's health took a dramatic turn for the worse. A severe bout of the flu led to complications, and he was hospitalized with acute respiratory problems. A tracheotomy provided temporary relief, but the Pope's weakened state left him struggling to communicate, a particularly painful limitation for a man whose words had inspired millions. Yet even in his suffering, the Pope continued to serve as a source of spiritual strength for the faithful. His final public appearances, including a brief wave from his hospital window, were moments of profound poignancy. It was clear to the world that the Pope's final days were approaching. As the end neared, the Vatican provided updates on his deteriorating condition. In late March 2005, John Paul II developed a urinary tract infection, which quickly led to sepsis, a life-threatening response to infection. Despite intensive medical care and the constant prayers of those around him, the Pope's condition continued to worsen. On April 2, 2005, surrounded by members of the papal household and close confidants, John Paul II took his final breaths. According to those present, his last words, spoken in Polish, were interpreted as, "Let me go to the house of the Father." It was a deeply moving farewell from a man who had devoted his life to serving others and spreading the message of God's love. The life and final moments of Pope John Paul II form a narrative of resilience, forgiveness, and unwavering faith. His journey from a boy in Poland who faced tragedy and loss to the leader of the Catholic Church who survived an assassination attempt, endured debilitating illness, and continued to inspire millions, is nothing short of remarkable. But it is the message he left behind in his final days, a message of divine mercy, forgiveness, and hope that has resonated most powerfully with the world. Pope John Paul II's tenure as the leader of the Catholic Church was marked not only by his spiritual teachings and global outreach, but also by his profound and public struggle with physical ailments. As early as the 1990s, signs of the Pope's declining health began to manifest. The man who had once moved with vigor and spoke with clarity began to slow down. Observers noted his increasing difficulty in walking, his trembling hands, and his increasingly slurred speech during public addresses. These symptoms led to widespread speculation about the Pope's condition, though the Vatican remained silent on the matter for many years. The first significant health setback came in 1992, when John Paul II underwent surgery to remove a benign tumor from his intestines. Though the surgery was successful, it marked the beginning of a series of medical challenges that would persist throughout the remainder of his life. In 1993, he dislocated his shoulder in a fall, and in 1994, he broke his femur, requiring hip replacement surgery. These physical setbacks did not deter him. He continued to travel and meet with the faithful, even as his health visibly deteriorated. In a world accustomed to seeing leaders projecting strength, John Paul II's choice to remain in the public eye despite his frailty was a testament to his resilience and dedication to his role. By the late 1990s, speculation about the Pope's condition had reached a peak. Although he appeared increasingly debilitated, the Vatican maintained an official stance of silence. It wasn't until 2001 that the Vatican confirmed what many had long suspected. Pope John Paul II was battling Parkinson's disease. This neurological disorder affects movement and speech, and its symptoms were evident in the Pope's increasingly tremulous hand movements, unsteady gait, and strained voice. Despite the progression of the disease, John Paul II refused to allow his condition to prevent him from fulfilling his duties. His determination to continue, even in the face of immense physical suffering, inspired millions around the world. In February 2005, Pope John Paul II's health took a sudden and severe turn for the worse. What began as a routine flu developed into acute respiratory problems, necessitating hospitalization. The Pope, who had always been a symbol of strength and resilience, was now fighting a battle against his own body. He underwent a tracheotomy to assist his breathing, a procedure that left him unable to speak. This loss of voice was a particularly painful blow for a man whose words had inspired so many throughout his life. In the days following the tracheotomy, the Pope continued to communicate through gestures and handwritten notes, maintaining a connection with those around him despite his worsening condition. As his health continued to decline, the Vatican provided regular updates, though the severity of his condition became increasingly evident. In late March 2005, John Paul II developed a urinary tract infection, which quickly led to septic shock, a life-threatening response to infection. His medical team worked tirelessly to stabilize him, but his frail body could not withstand the onslaught of complications. Despite the best efforts of his doctors, the Pope's condition continued to deteriorate. Those closest to him reported that even in his final days, John Paul II remained spiritually strong, finding solace in prayer and the presence of those who had accompanied him throughout his papacy. On April 2, 2005, the world held its breath as news of the Pope's rapidly declining condition spread. Thousands of faithful gathered in St. Peter's Square to pray and keep vigil as the final hours of John Paul II's life approached. According to those present at his bedside, the Pope's final moments were marked by peace and a sense of spiritual readiness. Surrounded by members of the papal household, close aides and confidants, John Paul II's final words were interpreted as, "Let me go to the house of the Father." These words, spoken in his native Polish, were a poignant and powerful reflection of the Pope's lifelong devotion to God. At 9:37 p.m. on April 2, 2005, Pope John Paul II passed away, marking the end of a remarkable life and papacy that had left an indelible mark on the world. The impact of Pope John Paul II's death was immediate and far-reaching. Across the globe, people of all faiths and backgrounds paused to reflect on the life of a man who had transcended religious and political boundaries. His passing was met with an outpouring of grief and gratitude, as millions of Catholics and admirers paid tribute to the man who had led the Church through a period of profound change. Yet, even in death, John Paul II's legacy continued to unfold. In the days following his passing, stories and reflections on the Pope's final teachings began to circulate, offering insight into the spiritual journey that had defined his final years. One of the central themes of John Paul II's final teachings was the concept of divine mercy, a belief in the boundless mercy and compassion of God. Throughout his life, the Pope had emphasized the importance of forgiveness and reconciliation, and in his later years, this message took on even greater significance. His dedication to promoting the Feast of Divine Mercy, established on the Sunday following Easter, was a testament to his belief in the transformative power of God's love. In his final writings and addresses, the Pope urged the faithful to embrace the message of divine mercy, calling on them to seek forgiveness and extend compassion to others. In the weeks leading up to his death, John Paul II reportedly wrote a series of letters and reflections which were later believed to contain insights and prophecies about the Church's future. While the contents of these letters have not been fully disclosed, their existence has fueled speculation about the Pope's final thoughts and concerns. Many believe that these writings, combined with his emphasis on divine mercy, were his final attempt to guide the Church and its followers toward a path of spiritual renewal and unity. These reflections, whether prophetic or not, underscore the depth of the Pope's spiritual insight and his unwavering commitment to his faith. The impact of John Paul II's message in his final days extended far beyond the confines of the Vatican. His teachings on forgiveness, compassion, and the power of divine mercy resonated deeply with people around the world, offering a source of hope and inspiration in a time of uncertainty. For many, the Pope's ability to forgive his would-be assassin and his message of mercy in the face of suffering stood as powerful examples of living one's faith with courage and humility. His teachings challenged the faithful to reflect on their own lives and strive to embody the principles of compassion and forgiveness in their interactions with others. In the aftermath of his death, the Vatican released an official report on the Pope's final illness, providing detailed information about the medical challenges he faced in his last days. The report aimed to address lingering questions and concerns about the nature of his decline, offering transparency about the Pope's health struggles. Despite these efforts, speculation and doubts persisted among some observers. Questions about the Vatican's handling of the Pope's illness and the extent of the transparency provided continued to be a topic of discussion among both the faithful and the broader public. While the official report provided clarity on some aspects of the Pope's final days, it also served as a reminder of the enduring sense of mystery that surrounded his life and legacy. The life, teachings, and final moments of Pope John Paul II continue to inspire reflection and debate, leaving a lasting spiritual legacy for future generations. His unwavering belief in the power of divine mercy and the transformative nature of God's love remains a central theme in the reflections on his papacy. Through his actions, the Pope demonstrated that true strength lies not in physical power, but in the ability to forgive, to endure suffering with grace, and to extend compassion to others. His establishment of Divine Mercy Sunday, a feast that he believed held great spiritual significance, was a fitting culmination of a life devoted to promoting faith, hope, and love. John Paul II's final address to the faithful, delivered just days before his passing, encapsulated the essence of his spiritual legacy. In this address, he emphasized the importance of trusting in God's mercy and urged the faithful to embrace the message of divine mercy in their lives. His words, spoken with a sense of urgency and spiritual conviction, served as a final call to action for the Church and its followers. The Pope's message of mercy and compassion, delivered in his final days, continues to resonate with those who seek to find meaning and purpose in their faith. As we reflect on the life and death of Pope John Paul II, we are reminded of the enduring power of his message and the profound impact he had on the world. His journey from a young boy in Poland who faced loss and hardship to a spiritual leader who inspired millions with his resilience and faith is a story of hope, courage, and unwavering dedication to God. His final message, left behind in his final days, challenges us to reflect on our own lives and consider the transformative power of mercy, forgiveness, and love. Through his life and teachings, John Paul II leaves behind a legacy that continues to inspire and guide people of all faiths and backgrounds. After Pope John Paul II's passing, the Vatican faced significant pressure to provide transparency regarding the final days of a leader who had been in the global spotlight for over a quarter of a century. The Pope's health struggles had been a matter of public speculation for many years, with the Vatican remaining tight-lipped about the true extent of his ailments until very late into his papacy. This reluctance to divulge details about John Paul II's health led to questions, both from within the Catholic community and beyond, about the Church's commitment to openness regarding its most prominent figure. In the days following his death, the Vatican released an official medical report that sought to provide clarity on the events leading up to the Pope's passing. The report detailed his battles with Parkinson's disease, his repeated hospitalizations, and the final complications that ultimately led to his death. It aimed to assure the faithful and the broader public that the Pope had been cared for with the utmost medical attention, and that all efforts were made to ensure his comfort in his final moments. However, despite the Vatican's efforts to be transparent, the report was met with skepticism by some observers who had long felt that the Church had been too secretive about the Pope's health. For many, the official report was a much-needed step toward honesty and transparency within the Church, acknowledging the difficulties faced by an aging and ailing leader. However, there remained those who were not fully satisfied, raising concerns about whether the complete truth had been revealed. Some speculated that the Vatican had withheld critical information about the severity of the Pope's condition, while others questioned the decision-making processes within the Vatican regarding the Pope's public appearances in his final years. Critics argued that the Church's handling of the Pope's declining health raised broader questions about how the Vatican manages information and protects its leaders' privacy while maintaining public trust. Moreover, lingering doubts and controversies surrounding the Pope's death led to a broader examination of the Church's practices and policies regarding the health of its leaders. Questions were raised about the level of transparency the Church owed to the faithful when it came to the health of such a prominent figure. Should the Church have been more forthcoming about the Pope's struggles with Parkinson's disease earlier on? And what does this secrecy imply about the Vatican's approach to transparency in other areas? These were difficult questions that many felt needed to be addressed in the wake of John Paul II's passing. Beyond the controversies and the lingering speculations, the legacy of Pope John Paul II continued to be a topic of profound reflection within the Church and among people around the world. Throughout his life, John Paul II had emphasized the importance of faith, forgiveness, and the transformative power of God's love. In his later years, as his physical health declined, these themes took on even greater significance in his teachings. His focus on divine mercy was not merely an abstract theological concept, but a deeply personal belief that guided his actions and decisions as a spiritual leader. John Paul II's belief in divine mercy was rooted in his own experiences of suffering, loss, and forgiveness. He had faced numerous trials throughout his life, from losing his family members at a young age to surviving the horrors of World War II and the Nazi occupation of Poland. These experiences, combined with his near-fatal encounter with an assassin's bullet, shaped his understanding of human suffering and the need for compassion and forgiveness. In his final years, the Pope's emphasis on divine mercy became a central theme of his papacy, and he worked tirelessly to promote this message to the faithful. One of the most significant expressions of this focus was his establishment of Divine Mercy Sunday, a feast celebrated on the Sunday after Easter. John Paul II believed that the message of divine mercy, as revealed to Saint Faustina Kowalska, was a crucial element of the Church's mission in the modern world. He saw it as a call for the faithful to embrace God's mercy, seek forgiveness, and extend that same mercy to others. By officially establishing this feast day, the Pope sought to create a lasting spiritual legacy centered on the transformative power of God's love and compassion. In his final address to the faithful, delivered just days before his death, John Paul II urged believers to trust in God's mercy and to continue seeking a deeper relationship with Christ. These words, spoken at a time when the Pope was visibly frail and unable to speak without great effort, carried a sense of urgency and spiritual conviction. It was as though the Pope, fully aware that his time on earth was coming to an end, wanted to leave the faithful with one final, powerful message: that in the midst of suffering and uncertainty, the mercy of God remains a constant source of hope and renewal. Reflecting on John Paul II's life and teachings, many people have found inspiration in his unwavering commitment to his faith and his ability to endure suffering with grace and humility. His final message of mercy and compassion continues to resonate with those who seek to find meaning and purpose in their own lives. The Pope's life and legacy serve as a reminder that true strength lies not in physical power, but in the ability to forgive, to endure hardship with dignity, and to extend kindness to others, even in the face of adversity. As the Church and the world mourned the passing of Pope John Paul II, there was a deep sense of reflection on his life and contributions. His establishment of Divine Mercy Sunday and his emphasis on the importance of forgiveness and compassion were not merely symbolic acts, but a testament to the depth of his spiritual insight and his commitment to living out the teachings of Christ. These elements of his legacy have continued to shape the Church's mission and inspire believers long after his passing. In the concluding moments of this journey through the life and final days of Pope John Paul II, it is crucial to recognize the broader significance of his message and legacy. Throughout his papacy, the Pope repeatedly emphasized the need for forgiveness, reconciliation, and a renewed focus on God's mercy. These teachings were not only a reflection of his own spiritual journey, but also a call to action for the Church and its followers to embrace these principles in their lives. As we consider the impact of Pope John Paul II's life and final message, it is clear that his legacy extends far beyond his time as the leader of the Catholic Church. His teachings on divine mercy and the importance of forgiveness continue to resonate with people of all faiths and backgrounds, offering a source of hope and inspiration in a world often marked by division and conflict. By establishing Divine Mercy Sunday, the Pope created a lasting spiritual foundation that invites believers to reflect on the depth of God's love and the transformative power of mercy. In reflecting on the life of Pope John Paul II, we are reminded of the enduring power of faith and the importance of living out the principles of compassion and forgiveness in our daily lives. His journey from a young boy in Poland who faced unimaginable loss and hardship to a global spiritual leader who inspired millions with his resilience and faith is a story of hope, courage, and unwavering dedication to God. His final message, left behind in his final days, challenges us to reflect on our own lives and consider the transformative power of mercy, forgiveness, and love. As we bring this reflection to a close, we invite viewers to take a moment to think about the legacy of Pope John Paul II and the message he left behind. What lessons can we learn from his life and teachings? How can we embody the principles of mercy and forgiveness in our interactions with others? These are questions that each of us must consider as we navigate our own spiritual journeys and strive to create a more compassionate and understanding world. In the spirit of Pope John Paul II's teachings, we encourage you to engage with these reflections and share your thoughts in the comments below. What aspects of the Pope's life and message resonate most with you? How can we continue to honor his legacy in our own lives and communities? If you found this video meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insights into the lives of history's most influential figures, and be sure to check out our other videos that explore the lives of spiritual leaders and their enduring legacies.